Machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Trust in you.
Didn't suck.
I'll take what I can get. Good night, kiddo.
meditation, which of course can be also called mindfulness. One of the big misconceptions about
Jacob Blake's
meditation.
family is reeling
These
after the 29-year-old.
thoughts that come up when we meditate. And what does that mean? You know, people try to meditate as if they're trying to switch their mind off and go into a blank state. Clear your mind, blank out your mind, still your mind. I mean, all of that doesn't work, because the more you try to still your mind, the busier it becomes. So it's a different game altogether. It's not about suppression, it's not about silencing the mind. It's about learning to not get so involved in the thoughts and just let them go. The thoughts can just go by like clouds in the sky. A modern image would be traffic. You're standing at the side of the road, there's cars going by. Do you get in those cars or not? That's the question. Maybe those cars are taxis. Taxi only stops if you put your hand out.
Feeling the most pain, though, and you know this very well yourself, is the family. The family that is currently at the hospital. We know that Jacob's mom has been at the hospital. His father is on the way. We were able to talk with his uncle, Justin Blake, who said, look, Jacob is a strong kid. He was a wrestler at one point, and he believes he will pull through this. And we know that at this point he's in stable condition. But he said that phone call to the family and the one that he got is a parent's worst nightmare.
In our head. So it's about letting it go by, so letting the thoughts go by.
This is like all the black parents talk about.
And
That's
so
that
as
phone
that
call you don't want to get.
and we become better at it,
And we got it.
we'll find that we are less
So you have
tormented
to
by our own mind.
get. This is
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.
And each time I thought I'd found my Prince Charming. Most people fall in love quite a few times in their lives.
Well then, how can you tell when you're really in love?
Well, I'll have to think about that. Let's say tomorrow, shall we?
And you were really in love with Betty and Mary and Alice, and I don't know who else. And there'll be others, I suppose. Oh, no.
Hey everybody, welcome
Hello.
to Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Thank you so much for joining us right at 2 p.m. as always.
As advertised,
As
we
ad-
are here.
Yep, here.
Ooh, goodness. I should have cleared my throat before we started.
Eek.
Someone had a fun time with it. You have... Oh,
Hey.
sorry, I was...
Thank you so much, everyone.
Heller,
that's in the
I
chat.
promise I am not... Oh, I know what it was.
What's that?
They could hear what we were doing.
Yeah, well, thank
They
you.
couldn't hear us talking, but you could hear us messing with CNN.
I
It's pretty
see.
good.
That's fun. Hey, what's up, Miguel, Holly Horn, Ayana, E. Heller. Thank you guys so much for joining us in Chicago Corner, this episode of Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Pretty cop heavy today. We were talking about like we're gonna have a segment for just cops, and then turn into just
It's actually turned into just the whole
cops.
show
Just
is
cops
about cops.
episode.
But it's all pretty important stuff, I'd
Yeah,
say.
it's all. I mean, you know, there's a big flashlight on cops, and I mean, it's the week of the RNC. It's their week. It's their week.
It's the Law and Order week,
It's
baby.
the Law and Order week.
Yeah.
You know, it's their week to rally. Oh God, awful things to say about how
Wait, now that
emboldened
needs
they
to
must
be.
feel.
That needs to be. That I don't know why that isn't their slogan at this point.
What's that?
Like their RNC like the convention week should just be the Law and Order week.
Law and Order, guns and Jesus. Yeah.
Extravaganza.
Extravaganza.
It's Toyota-thon, but for the RNC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toyota-thon. RNC style. Oh my God.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Nice to see you, Holly and
Yeah.
Miguel H, Al G, E Heller 42.
Al makes a good point. I thought Law and Order was the last convention. It was,
As
and
you-
this one's just a different flavor of it. So like
Ayana?
that's why we have such a cop-heavy episode, because really both parties are just catering to cops and their poor coddled feelings and what they're going through right now, as they indiscriminately kill on camera, you know, without any regard
To what
to
is really
society,
happening? Yeah.
to God and life and anything. monstrous.
Yeah. So I guess let's just jump right into
Let's
it.
do it.
Let's do it.
That,
So
folks, that was some fear and loathing. Let's jump into the.
I don't know what's going on with my voice now. It's like the moment I got nervous. I got all into it. So anyways, the first thing we're gonna start with is this tweet. Some students got arrested.
Students got arrested. A lot of today's programming came out of like this very concise, kind of Twitter narrative. It's constructed here. Chicago is a city that has a really rough relationship with the police and its government, and this kind of goes into why different arcs of like why. As much as we want to say this is a Democrat-run city, Democrat-run county, it's a capital-run county, and ultimately how they rigged the game against the masses ever trusting it. On top of the students getting arrested yesterday for protesting cops within CPS, the different data and that has come out. The Sun-Times kind of revealed a story that we'll cover later about reforms that have been done within. Police within schools. Reforms have already taken place.
For the past 5 years, it seems.
Rahm ran on that in the second term, and you had all these great politicians stand by him and say, "You did it, buddy. We solved it." It led to much more stark racial disparities in who gets arrested and has encounter with police within schools. Also, FOIA requests of data will indicate that as a survey that came out of students saying they overwhelmingly love the police that are in CPS. 50% of students were surveyed to being that. The data came from only 10 schools, primarily white.
Okay.
Yeah, and they only got 50%.
I'm sure that they're fine with the police in schools because I'm sure that nothing really goes all that wrong for them.
Well, one of them, Whitney Young. My high school that I went to also happens to be next door to the existing police academy. They want to build another one, and where another protest took place this past Saturday. They didn't make the news this much, but we'll give that a cover. But I mean, all of this, we're talking about police because of what happened earlier this week in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I don't really care to repeat. Show the video, and I know that there were protests and a lot of highlights about that are going on in the news. I don't want to give that more airtime. Trump hasn't said anything about it. He's really busy figuring out mail fraud, crime that Steve Bannon is already guilty of. So I mean, case solved, maybe. I don't know. He'll get to the bottom of it, winning.
Steve, don't worry, Steve Bannon. He'll get on it.
He'll get on it. I thought Steve be out of jail by now, but we'll check it out.
I want to end this little section just this last tweet in this thread.
Right, that's what this whole thing was for.
The data is clear. Even when covered up, the system fails to reform itself, even in a consent decree. Yet Chicago police are arresting students tonight, and tomorrow we'll be told to celebrate law and order. Yeah.
There you go.
It's the flavor of the day. It's the flavor of
the episode. There you go. It sets the tone for what all these stories to be contextualized in. Lies. Damn lies.
It really, it sucks because this is all coming to
Bible and gun flavor.
This is all coming to a head, right? This is all meeting at a point much like it did in George Floyd. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's which isn't surprising. It's what was going to happen in the first place. It's what's bound to happen, I think, in this current iteration of the system.
Well, I mean, the police have not been put on any kind of notice. I mean, the police killed George Floyd, and the worst that happened to the system. We talk about Minneapolis defunding the police. They really didn't, guys. We're gonna have a team meeting on Sunday to get our stuff in order. But Minneapolis took some money away from the police department to get credit for defunding their police. But ultimately, everyone's looking at this election to see what federal regulations, guidelines come through, and then all of that is going to get more money pumped into it. So police largely know they're still being incredibly protected by both parties. which is why you have a situation like what happened in Kenosha, where police just killed a man without thinking about it twice.
Attempted.
Right.
Attempted to.
Excuse me. Right. Attempted to.
Yeah, because
and if he wasn't
he's-
caught on video, like, what would be the official story to come out of that, right?
What might be, right? And that's talking about algae. Got it. Jacob Blake is paralyzed,
Right.
perhaps permanently from the waist down.
Right.
But is stable and recovering. I guess that's
Which is just, I mean, amazing that he was shot 7 times and he is still holding on to life, and we hope he pulls through.
and probably definitely not. We talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday, but I mean, like, it's not what they wanted, right? It's for sure not what those police officers probably had in mind.
Right.
Hopefully, I mean, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they've been talking about, that the officers responsible for this need to be
Right. A little
what's the
quicker on it.
wording? What's the wording that
Yeah.
they were using? They need to be held accountable, whatever that means, right?
That's like having access to justice.
Yeah.
They need access to
They need-
a jail cell.
The police officers who
They really need
did
that
this,
access.
They need
Yeah.
access to the justice
They
system.
need access to, standing in front of a judge. Real classy. But we do have a word from Jacob's family that I thought was maybe the only thing that we should share.
Yeah,
right
the only
at
real
this
like
point.
highlight at this point that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. This is Jacob's
phone
uncle.
call you don't want to get, and we got it. So you have to sort of be strong for each other, let your faith lead the way. And so after talking to his mother, she and my brother are asking people in Kenosha and around this nation to protest, but protest non-violently. We want justice, and we're going to get justice. We're going to demand justice, but we're going to do that without tearing up our own communities.
What did he say to you when you first talked to him?
That it was going to be all right. And it is. But what's all right when someone's life was just totally changed? Thank God he's alive. So we're just praying for a great recovery, that he may have a great quality of life, and that his father, my brother, can enjoy him.
Yeah.
Right. So, Jacob's family obviously still, awesome CNN.
Yeah,
What
thank
you
you
call
for
it?
that.
Still pining for justice and praying for Jacob to get through. And obviously in solidarity with all the protests out there, and cognizant that keeping this peaceful protest Minneapolis burning down is how we saw traction move quickly. I'm also cognizant of the fact that traction moves backwards quickly as well.
Mm-hmm.
In order to have sustained change, you need sustained protest. In order to have sustained protest, it needs to be kept within the bounds of what can be said to be peaceful protest. And, that Blake's family has now have to be pushed into the forefront of the national politics and discourse, and has the wherewithal and cognizance of like, okay, well, this is what you do in this moment, is an unfortunate thing that is too often normalized in communities that are most targeted and have the least access, to use a word, to the American promise of its many resources that it's plundered across the ages and across the world.
I think, like, I'm reminded of Killer Mike.
Yeah.
After the George Floyd protest, like, originally broke out in Atlanta.
Right.
And I'm reminded of him talking about, going to a city council meeting to stand up and say, like, look, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
These injustices have been committed against us and our people for a long time, but it's important to, and this was like, at the height of everything was coming to a head, right? And his.
I remember he got a lot of flack for that.
Right, but his plea with his community was like, go home and strategize, plan, make a long-term goal for what you want to see happen and what you want to see change, right? Like, it's not a time to destroy your community. It's not a time to do whatever. And it's
I mean, ultimately, I mean, like, because I remember his stance. I mean, like, I only caught wind of it because it trickled through, like, social media verse, and people are like, Killer Mike's, like, pro-cop. And I was like, what? Like, what?
Yes, I wouldn't view it as that.
I mean, like, he's much friendlier to the cop than what you would get out of a lot of Rose Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very upfront and personal about that. I think also his cry was, we need to channel this energy exactly to what you said, to strategy, to tactics,
Mm-hmm.
and that's hard, you know, when there's righteous anger, you know, to be had in these situations. And I guess that's also why, you know, to highlight Jacob's family, you know, who more to have righteous anger at this moment, is calling for strategy to, you know, let's get justice, let's get it all together, and let's get it for the long term.
That's the and I think that's like really, that's how I feel about it. At least I think that's the big takeaway right now for me is like, it's never going to get better, right?
Yeah.
We're never really gonna see, and it's happening. I'm not saying that it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
Like we've seen more organization and more more plans that have been put into place to make a certain direction, to go in a certain direction. We've seen more of that recently in the past few months than we have seen in decades, right?
Right.
Which I think is good, but it's important to not let up on that, right? And especially
and we also know that peaceful protests are only as peaceful as the state would allow. Like, you can have peaceful protests of gun nuts that, you know, want to make America great and let's open up the economy because COVID's a hoax, and nothing will happen. But, you know, you have protesters marching, you know, moms and veterans marching in Portland, sustaining, you know, some agitation towards until real reforms take place, and things pop off on the regular with police, and the protesters get blamed for that. But then the Proud Boys show up, and then the police are nowhere to be found while skirmishes take place until the Proud Boys leave. Then the police come back and say, well, these Black Lives Matter protesters, these radical left protesters are the issue. So it's obviously a marketing ploy. You're out there because you're upset, and the police are going to leverage on that. Well, all I can say, the difference between a peaceful protest and what people would say, well, you know, would be called riots, is about what the police response is to massive crowds gathering for sustained periods of time.
Right, and the only way that you get to images like this, which is from Portland, right, on day 79.
Right. Wow, yeah.
Or whatever, which also, by the way, just to like reiterate, they're still doing it. It's still happening, right? Like, it's not letting, which is good. That's right. Which is the only, but like to get a response that looks like this, right?
Right.
From the protesters, it took the police agitating and aggressing it to the point where, okay, like, you want us to go home, you're willing to, you know, pepper spray, tear gas, use all these scare tactics. I guess we just have to, like, we have to escalate too. Yeah. Because we want change, right? And that's what's necessary.
Yeah.
I think.
Standing Rock was an issue that the people involved didn't think that would get as much national attention, and was being overshadowed by the presidential election. You had people show up from all over to try and stand in solidarity with people that were being tear gassed and you know, criminalized with basically a military force on American soil. Now it's happening in Portland. Now it's happening all over. And we've always said that Bernie Sanders was the compromise. I want to stick to that energy. Like, I want to share Kamala Harris's response to all this, our would-be top cop president, because the Democratic ticket right now is the compromise to police. I don't want leftists to vote for Donald Trump, but if Donald Trump were to win again, communism's going to keep getting normalized, anti-police agitation is going to keep getting normalized, and the conversation of killing Nazis and anyone that's Nazi adjacent will keep being normalized. So, I mean, police want to go all in on Donald Trump over this. I mean, that's on them. But
I don't know. There's so much. I have so much varying opinions on really what might be the right direction for You know?
Yeah.
Whether it's Biden or Trump. It's only going to be Biden or Trump.
Well,
right?
it's this group of people. It's basically the cops that didn't want to reform under Obama, that went nuts about Mexican invaders pillaging America at the border, that basically, anyone that's Muslim is a terrorist, and we have to be on guard for that. That's just what we're trained to do. We're following orders. Anyone that's normalized that culture that's led to Trump having to be, as ridiculous and as grandiose as he is, I want them to do what I know that they really want to do. Go hide behind Kamala Harris and Biden. Because they're going to protect your nice union jobs. They're going to make sure that your law and order buddies get even more money. And they're going to keep basically telling kids that it's nice to grow up and be just like you. Or vote for Donald Trump and let us, radical leftists, grow off of your horrible PR. Like, I don't give a shit. But if we can show, what did Miss K Hive have to say? Miss B Queen B. Jacob Blake should not be. Can you blow it up a little bit? Because I'm sorry, because I have all of the mini feed here, and I have a really tiny screen.
I have.
Jacob Blake should not be fighting for his life right now.
As Joe Biden said, there must be an immediate investigation, and the officers involved should be held accountable. Jacob, our nation is praying for you and your entire family. And then Joe Biden's, this is the short version of his official statement on his website, which I will give you that.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back as police attempted to restrain him from getting into his car. His children watched from the inside of the car, and bystanders watched in disbelief. And this morning, the nation wakes up yet again with grief and outrage that yet another black American is a victim of excessive force. This calls for an immediate, full, and transparent investigation, and the officers must be held accountable. These shots pierce the soul of our nation, all right? Jill and I pray for Jacob's recovery and for his children. Equal justice has not been real for black Americans and so many others. Whose fault is that, Joe?
Yeah, I wonder who helped make that normal.
Who stood up in Congress and defended that norm as okay
for a long time,
and then eulogized the guy that really wrote the book on that being the norm.
Yeah.
Wow. But we are at an inflection point. That word's been thrown around. I started it, I want to say. We must dismantle systemic racism that you architected and created. I guess he would be the guy, but it is the urgent task before us. Urgent, he says. Right. Get real. Isn't that what he said about Medicare for all during a pandemic? Urgency from this guy.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, do you think America would do that? Do you think they would just lie to black Americans about hope and change and things getting better?
Always.
I don't know.
Every year.
With Joe?
Every year
is that a Biden-esque move? Oh,
yeah.
Shoot.
Yikes.
Oh, shoot. American promise, which we are yet to attain, that you keep so many from attaining always, that all men and women are created equal. That's why you treat them equally. And are more importantly, that they must be treated equally, but separately, as he would believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's Joe. That's what's too radical left for cops.
Which is plainly not true, right? It's legitimately my problem with it, right, is that one, Joe Biden isn't saying anything. He's not saying anything that matters.
The only thing that's kind of deep about it, he's an incredible hypocrite, and the other side of it on.
So the thing that would surprise me, right, is if he actually dismantled the system that he helped create.
Right, which
that
he won't.
would be he won't. I'm not saying that he will.
He's not going to.
I'm not going to put up any. I'm not going to set my standard of hope to that.
Right.
But the
Joe didn't write that. I agree. So
yeah, who is writing?
I bet he can't
Joe's
even
speeches?
repeat his own words later on.
He won't. No, he would definitely. He won't. And oh dang, we need to, because you and I went through this before. But look at. You go to Joe's vision, right?
Yeah.
It's battle for the soul of the nation, right? Biden, Harris, bold ideas. You want to give money? You can give money, baby. And then they got all of these all of these, right? And they get the Latino community. They care so much about Latinos.
Yeah,
that
why
they
do
put
we
them in
get
there
two?
twice.
I mean, like, don't lean into it. That's so classic.
What is it actually? What is his goal for the Latino community?
Oh man, it's a lot of fluff, and there's no tangibles there.
Everyone is treated with dignity. So okay, let's.
Yeah.
I want to see. So what I want to do is I want to kind of like skim over this really quick, and then I want to go to the other sections, and I want to see like how much of it's copy paste, right?
A museum. That's what's gonna feed poor Latinos around the country, or maybe make rich Latinos feel good about themselves.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Latino history is in.
All right.
Intricately woven. Okay, so like that's how he feels about Latinos, right? So then let's see what his black agenda is, right?
Great
wealth. That's a weird.
Money.
Create wealth, invest in our communities through housing, protect, build on Obamacare, invest in our students and educators. So I don't know. It just seems very like general. All of these, he has so many different points, but I think all of it is just to illustrate, right, like the same one point, the same general.
Right. He's here for y'all. And then you got Donnie Boy Trump. He has not said anything about Kenosha, and probably will say something like, well, that cop probably, his kids probably feel terrible that his dad killed someone or shot someone 7 times, and he's traumatized that everyone thinks that his dad's a bastard. What, is anyone going to think about the cop? And that's where Trump's going to be at, and that's why he can go to hell.
I wanted to see, because this is the worst wording that you could possibly use.
Yeah.
The Biden agenda for women, which includes improve economic security.
Yeah, that sounds bad. I have an agenda for women.
Healthcare, help women navigate working families, and violence against women. Also, shoulder rubs, probably.
Yeah.
You had to be real.
Hair sniffing.
So cool.
So I mean, like all this to again illustrate, you can't trust the system to reform itself.
Right.
This is as reformy as it gets. The police are crying out Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, radical left. Oh my God, they're gonna come and change our lives. And it's a lot of old platitudes and reforms from 10 years ago that the cops wouldn't accept under Obama, that they might accept under Joe at this point, because all cops are bastards is becoming like the hip new thing internationally to say for Gen Z, which would be more of that under Trump. So like cops, keep doing your thing. But we know you're not going to.
Are you allowed to, Heller 42, are you allowed to Biden it up in the early afternoon, or is it limited to the evening pot? I feel like the Biden it up brand is like you have to do it at least once if you're gonna say it.
Yeah.
So I had to do it. I had to throw it in there.
Yeah, it's the trademark voice of it.
I just feel like it needs to be, that's TMCR ATV Off-Road Fury 3 for the PlayStation 2.
I follow.
That's
all of that.
I was totally on board with all that. So anyways.
Let's move on because we're just killing time at this point. But a lot more stories to talk about cops being bastards, in the sense that you own the system, you protect the system, you thrive on the system. Whatever happens in November, you're going to get more money from the system. So.
Yeah, and so moving the conversation. So we went like kind of national for a second, right? Talking about the Bidening it up, as it were. So let's bring it back to Chicago.
Right.
Back to the students, right? So at CPS high schools, a stark racial divide on when cops are called on students and arrests.
Yeah, Gunnar, I don't know if you can get rid of this mini feed. I'm seeing like the Streamlabs thing, and I just want to see the. There you go. Beautiful. That's it.
Oh goodness, I'm lost now. Oh.
Yay. Right. So, in 8th grade, Angela McFarland and his friends were detained by Chicago police officers after a group of boys started an argument with them at school. Nisa Perez, a special education student, was dragged out of a classroom by a cop for having headphones on in class. They reprimanded for resisting him. Devon Jackson stood in the hallway in school watching officers respond to a typical teenage fight by pulling tasers, yikes, and grabbing students. Destiny Bell saw an argument between officers, classmates, and alumni outside the building after school escalate to where cops were shoving and tackling kids for loitering after final dismissal. That's rough.
Usually, like, where I come from, and this is, like, not going to be a shock probably to many people in my little town in Arkansas, they just, like, took our phones away.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it wasn't, like you were doing hard drugs or about to serve time for texting in class. That just seems ridiculous. It blows my mind that is that the purpose of cops in school?
It is, actually. For years, black students and community activists have complained about having uniformed police officers in their schools, saying the result is that school staff members target black children, getting cops involved over routine disagreements, which leads to officers escalating those situations and criminalizing black teenage behavior.
Mm-hmm.
They also say police don't know how to handle the needs of students in special education and shouldn't be the ones to respond to a student in crisis. This is true.
I agree.
The school system's own data backs that up. According to Chicago Sun-Times analysis of Chicago Public Schools records, and find that a stark divide in how black students and those in special education are treated compared to other students. Among the Sun-Times findings, students who attend high schools that has a Chicago police officer stationed inside are 4 times more likely to have police called on them than kids in high schools that don't have in-house cops.
I wonder why.
Yeah, students at majority black high schools are almost 3 times more likely to have police called on them than kids at schools with a student population that is more heavily white than the city average. Black girls face some type of intervention by school police officers at a rate 8 times higher than white girls, at nearly 14 times higher than Asian American girls. Cops are called on children and special education more than 3 times more often than other students. It's not here. At high schools with police officers inside, cops intervene more frequently at schools with majority black student populations than those with black students are a minority. Students' arrest data released for the first time by CPS this past week shows that those police notifications have led to arrest of black students at a rate 9.5 times higher than white students, 6 times higher than Latino students, and 38 times higher than Asian American students. Out of the 11,527 students arrested made in Chicago over the past 9 years, including the shortened 2019-2020 years, 9,001 have been black students. That's 78.1%. That's even though black students have accounted for 39% of CPS enrollment over that time, records show.
Isn't that strange how it really
that's a good photo.
Empirical data
Yeah.
seems to actually prove that maybe police are racist?
I know that there's right-wing, somebody on the YouTube comments had mentioned Tim Pool, and I don't really watch his stuff very much, but he seems a little fixated on the whole, well, do you know that, in urban America, crime rate is this much, and blah,
Right.
blah, 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 and this demographic, blah, 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 blah. Numbers, tell you the story that you're trying to tell, help you tell the story that you're trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned that law enforcement in general in America is just a jobs program for the conservative cultural movement, which is just the racist white supremacy of we're really proud we conquered and tamed this land of unchristian heathens. And the president deserves all the power in the world because he's King Christian and the world's right and holy. And then George W. Bush got to do that. And now the world's fixed. But police are in schools with uniforms, in Chicago specifically, as cultural conditioning. They're not there to create a safe environment. They're there to scare kids into not behaving like teenagers.
Right.
It's
all of these things that we're talking about up here, right? It's I wonder, why is it that it seems like Chicago, why does it seem like CPD is really interested in giving all of these students more access to police care? Then I know that's
mental health care, right?
We could do that. Health care. We could take
because you don't want to train a army of therapist workers. You want to train an army of grunts that know how to beat people into submission.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you pour money into law enforcement.
It's really great to just be able to. Why educate when you can just bully people into giving you what you want?
And
right?
For a long time, black organizers will tell you this. Chicago Teachers Union had a very racist streak in the sense that most of the workforce were white women that felt threatened in classrooms of minority children and were complicit in the cultural conditioning that law enforcement and police were ingrained in at the time. Then you see the organizing within the teachers union, especially under Cora, under Karen Lewis, become much more geared towards social justice to combat that micromanaging and cultural conditioning. And then what do you see after that? You see 50 schools, primarily in black neighborhoods where the workforce are primarily black teachers, get closed down under Ronnie Manuel. And then you lose a significant chunk of the workforce, specifically the workforce that was agitating for heavy reforms within the union. And you see the rise of members first within CTU that wants to just talk about the contract and not social justice. Like, that's not what we do every day at a micro minutia level. But police and I say this because, I mean, Chicago unions, I mean, like, we're all meritocratic experiments for the billionaire class that live in those damn towers, you know, in downtown. Like, it's not a new thing if you're grew up as, you know, in Chicago public schools and urban America. Like, the rich do experiments on you. It sucks. It's weird.
that's always good to know.
Sometimes good snacks come out of it. God, I sound like a lab rat. Okay.
With that, let's take a moment here because eHeller42 in the comments has brought up something of importance, which is at 4 p.m. Chicago time for Rockfin and Patreon supporters. Kit, Jose, and I will be reviewing Godfather 3, so definitely stay tuned for that. Just wanted to take a minute, you know, like plug some stuff. Figure we should take the time out to. Since we're just talking about cops today, I feel like it's nice to just get in a little
Godfather 3 review. For those of you that have not seen it, we've saw it for you. So,
and I have like such a different opinion than I feel like Kit and you are going to have. I don't know.
What did you think about the movie, Gunner?
I can't tell you because that's what the whole point of the whole movie review show is.
Well,
we can't talk about it right now. Ooh.
All right.
So anyways, moving right along to our next story about the wonderful and beautiful folks over at CPS. We got that story out of the Chicago Reader.
So before we go into this, like, just to go, you know, and it's a little raw to talk about like white supremacy and white supremacist culture. I also say this, you know, like Latin America does this too, like to the indigenous population. Like I say this too because like America not only did it not create white supremacy or perfect it in the middle of its height of it. Like, you got Richard Spencer endorsing Joe Biden out there. Like, that's the chops of the neo-Nazi movement in America.
Yeah.
But it's still a real movement that has real chops, and I do fear it. You know, one of its goals is to scientifically prove the inferiority of other people.
Right.
Which is what all of this data and gunk, you know, within CPS, within Chicago, that comes out of our home governmental apparatus here helps do. And part of this reveals how that data is fudged to tell you the story that you want to do. And law enforcement in America is basically geared to tell one story, which is that story, the scientific proof of why conquering this land was good because of superiority or whatnot.
It's a centuries-long effort to be like, no, we were right. No, sorry, we were right.
Always was right.
Yeah,
you guys were just complaining about
totally
getting killed for
wrong.
no reason.
Yeah.
Like unreasonable animals that you are. Damn. And I mean, and I got into an argument with someone recently. It felt like Obama's project was to counter that narrative.
Yeah.
Like, I will be everything that
I'll be
white empowered people in America guiding the country as theirs want me to be.
I'll be, yeah.
To show that it's not about skin color. And that just drove Donald Trump crazy.
Right.
And Steve Bannon and other people saw a way to leverage some money off of that. And other people in Russia, I guess, saw how to avoid World War III from Hillary Clinton out of that. And now we're stuck in this mess. But that's why it's like, if the police want to double down on that with Trump, like, go ahead. Honestly, like, that's really what it comes down to. But we know you want to go hide behind Kamala Harris's skirt. We know you want Joe's assertion that nothing will fundamentally change. So that's what I'm gearing this episode towards. And this next article shows that the kids do hate you. There's data out there that suggests that they're kind of mixed up about you. That's not true. Don't think for a second that, maybe they want to give you a shot. Largely, the kids hate you.
They actually really don't like you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we can bring this up. Right. So this is an article from the Reader. Chicago Reader is a great outlet coming out of Chicago. A rosy CPS survey on cops in schools falls short. As the board vote looms, they took a lawsuit to get the data. So this is a survey that CPS put out. People had to FOIA the data of that survey in order to get the minutiae of it. And let's get into it. The summer's protests of police violence have fueled an ongoing debate about the role of police officers within Chicago Public Schools. The school's resources officers, SROs, program assigned Chicago Police Department's officers to 72 of the district's 93 high schools, along with one district's charter schools. As a youth-led movement under the hashtag CopsOutCPS has picketed at schools and CPS board members' homes, local school councils have voted on whether or not to keep the program. 17 LSCs have decided to end the program, while 55 voted to retain. Each of the school's voters can be seen here. So on Wednesday, the CPS board will vote on whether to renew the contract with CPD on a district level next year. So that's tomorrow. If they do, the program will only continue at the schools whose LSC votes retain it. The SROs program, which have long been plagued by lax oversight, have been cast by critics as a major part of the school-to-prison pipeline, will undergo some changes. For example, students will no longer be entered into the police department's error-rittered gang database, which is kind of just like a database for mess with these people. And cops won't be paid for the days that they're not inside the schools as the district continues to remote learning due to the pandemic. Despite the vocal movement to remove cops from the schools, the district has repeatedly cited students and parents support the SRO program. Back in June, the board considered immediate termination of the program, which funneled $33 million from CPS to CBD. Last year's school program, the program retained by a 4-3 vote, a rare divide vote, and a body handpicked by the Chicago's mayor. Reminder that all the women that were backed up by the data that a lot of these people provided to them voted to get rid of the program. All the men that were just like, well, you need cops to keep schools safe. We're just like, they didn't want to bother with it, but let's keep going. Sorry, let's keep going.
Easy.
At that June 24th meeting, district officials presented results from an online survey of students, parents, teachers, administrators, and community members about their opinions on the SR program. According to CPS, 66% of students who took the survey strongly or somewhat agreed with the statement, "I believe our school's resource officers help to keep our schools safe." In general, the school survey results presented by the district showed a favorable view of SROs from students, parents, and workers within the schools, an unfavorable view of the community at large. Wow. This implied that the negative perception of cops in schools came from outsiders and not the people, especially not the students in direct contact with the officers. Naturally, the reader was curious about the survey methodology and results, especially as student-led protests against cops in schools were galvanized by huge crowds across the city. No, they were not funded by Soros or Democrats. These students are just very upset about their classmates getting beaten and shot by cops. How was the survey distributed? How could the district be sure that it was representative of the schools with SROs? Were measures taken to make sure no one took the survey more than once? Could we know for sure that it was really students taking the survey, not, say, their parents or random people on the internet claiming to be students? We first asked a direct question about the survey on June 25th, and McCran receiving orders from district spokespeople a week later. The survey was distributed directly to all known emails, addresses, ties to students, staff, families, and LSC members associated with schools that have SROs, wrote James Girardi in an email. However, anyone with access to the link was able to complete the survey. In her presentation to the board, CPS Chief of Safety and Security, J. Dean Shah, was mentioned that the link was available on social media. Girardi wrote that keeping the survey anonymous was necessary to promote honest and forthcoming feedback, while outreach was targeted to specific groups, names, contact information was not collected.
But not but it wasn't an anonymous thing that was somehow tied to some piece of information that associates you with being a student or a faculty member or a parent. I don't know. I feel like...
I don't know. I mean, Trump's really getting to the bottom of voter fraud because he doesn't want people voting twice. So maybe he could figure this one out.
Yeah, maybe
for
start
us.
here.
He seems like he's it's everywhere. Everyone's doing it. The district stated that although 10,000, that's a magic number, 333 survey responses received, 4,398 were excluded because they were incomplete. The district promised to release a full overview of the survey results. Blah, blah, blah. For NEC, the reader filed a Freedom of Information Act request of the data on July 8th. CPS immediately asked for 5 business day extension to the 5 business day response deadline. So they wanted 10 days, they wanted 2 weeks. On July 22nd, it was denied the reader's request, claiming that it was unduly burdensome because it would require review of data over 6,000 survey submissions. So the next day, the reader responded with a narrowed request for the data, asking the district only for student responses and to redact all identifying information from their school and race, since experts say that it's black students who are disproportionately targeted by police and negatively impacted by police and schools. We primarily were interested in students' responses, and we wanted to know which schools they came from and how they identified their race. CPS never responded to the narrowed request. Based on Illinois FOIA statutes, the reader had grounds to sue the district and asked the judge to force the district to produce the data. We filed the lawsuit on August 14th and got a December hearing date. The district turned over the data a week later. So they were already going to court in December over this survey.
Interesting.
After preliminary analysis, here's what we learned. Of the 5,935 complete survey responses, one of which respondents answered all questions, 55% came from respondents self-identifying as students. Half of the students' responses came from just 10 of the 72 schools in the SRO program. So Lane Tech, Jones, Taft, Curie, Kelly. Curie, that's right by my neighborhood. Kelly, Northside Prep, Whitney Young, my old high school. Kenwood Academy, I went there for 7th, 8th grade. Oh my God, so many memories. All right.
Life.
Sorry. Yeah, life.
Nearly 12% of responses came from just one school.
Lane Tech, whose LSC voted to remove SROs. 18 schools had 10 or fewer students respond in the survey, with 3 schools having just 1 student each. So that's not awesome. And bear in mind, I mean, like, this is Chicago Public School. This is a civic organization, and it's an institution whose data has real ramifications on national policy.
This is the important bit of these, though, right? Is that collectively these schools have 4,000 students. Most of these schools are more than 90% black, right?
Yep.
So that's the important data that they're trying to explain to you is that the overwhelmingly favorable student views of SROs comes from white predominant schools, not the schools that are actually affected by
and
the
a
issue.
lot of those schools also whose local school councils ended up voting against having the police officers stay. So again, it goes into telling the story that you want to tell with these data, with these optics, with these marketing, and it has real ramification on what gets done in this major city, which will have ramification on what New York does and LA does and what other school districts do. All right, and keeping with this team, because I don't want to eat up too much time. So take everything that, all the data that comes out with a grain of salt. Shout out to the reader for pushing CPS to this lawsuit and getting a lot more clarity on what's coming out. And I mean, like, it's a full court press to get any kind of change in Chicago, and we're getting close. There's another article about, so this happened yesterday. Chicago police arrested 13 people after tents are set up outside CPS headquarters to protest officers. Sometimes already had ran the story about CPS students getting arrested. The Tribune kind of wanted to add this spin of like, it was just 13. They were being unreasonable. They had tents outside. Oh my God. And then like, I'm paying $1 for this article and bombard me with ads. Terrible website design, Tribune. More than a dozen people. I decided, since I'm going to pay to like roast them on this channel, that I'm just going to like drag the Tribune every time.
I feel like that's fine.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I don't.
How's
I
that
don't
Marco
think
Rubio
that's,
endorsement working out for you?
I definitely don't think that that's biased or slanted in any ways.
it's not. I mean, like, I don't really have a slant other than the Tribune's terrible.
Right. Which is, I mean, I accept that. So
yeah.
Because I accept that about most news.
The police said they gave protesters several warnings. The tents outside 42 West Madison were blocking the streets. Those arresters were charged with illegally obstructing the roadway, they said. The protesters was the latest call by activists for the removal of Chicago police officers in Chicago public schools. It came days before the Chicago Board of Education has considered a resolution that could phase out use of officers. The resolution, up for a vote Wednesday, would require that the CEO and district leaders, in consultation with school communities, identify and recommend an alternative plan to ensure safe and supportive school environments. The resolution, and I mean, like, even the resolution they're trying to pass is really just a watered-down way of buying themselves some time,
right,
to put in weak reforms.
Because that's what
this is how slow
what they do. The change isn't going to happen right now. We have to think about it, and then we have to pass more legislation that lets us think about it.
And then we have to figure out a way to, like, do it without it really changing anything that we're used to.
And then by the time it gets to the point where any change actually happens, you've forgotten about the original reason why it was a problem in the first place.
Pretty much. Government. So there's about 60 people, 13 people were arrested. Shout out to these amazing groups that are out there. BPNC, Just Out Daughters, whatnot. Chicago police put out the statement. Officers at the protests were ensuring the rights of peaceful protesters were safely facilitated. However, about 60 protesters set up tents in the street, illegally obstructing the roadway. Officers issued 3 warnings to leave the street. 13 individuals remained. All right, so.
Which is, I don't know, it's just, it's that kind of short speak that the cops have of, like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, also to bring this up is that this, depending on where you're standing on this argument, you can say, like, oh, they're pushing the cops to arrest them. This is all for show. This is also, like, how hard it is to change any norm in the city.
Yeah.
And Lori Lightfoot's not, she's talking about on the national stage about Kamala Harris and reform and all this. Here in the city, like, where's her leadership with this? These are her students too. These kids are growing up in her city, but it's not their futures that she's gearing the city for, which is unfortunate. There was also the Wall Street Post was kind of talking smack about CTU. I kind of wanted to push back against Wall Street. These poor kids getting arrested.
I think first I just want to talk about anything I can to talk about, which is my experience as a young black woman in CBS, experiencing police officers within my school. I think it's very funny how I go to a very selective enrollment school, actually top 7 within Illinois, but we have a nurse 2 out of 5 days of the week. How the fuck is that possible when we got a CPD officer in our school at all times? And anytime I can find somebody with a badge, anytime I can find somebody with a gun. How the fuck is that possible when I can bust my head open in school and nobody is there? That ain't right!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Pretty solid point.
Child public school students are awesome. These poor kids. And I mean, like, why do they have to fight this hard for a dignified system,
Yeah. Why do people have to fight so hard to just be treated with an ounce of decency?
God. Where was this? Oh, this was still from Monday, right?
This is yeah.
We love you. We love you.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's there. And then where is this other article? The other one that I have is.
We had it all set up, so like we just have to like
this
click.
One.
Yeah, they're all on top there in order. All right. Blah blah blah. What you call it? Proportion of black cops in Chicago Police Department likely to go down. Cool. Awesome reforms.
Cool.
Right.
It's just like another. Let's just add that to the list of.
Let's add that to the list of like the great weeks that cops are having this week.
Yeah.
Like RNC week. The proportion of black cops in Chicago Police Department will likely go down as officers retire in coming years. The Chicago Public Safety Watchdog told aldermen on Monday during her annual report. The City Chicago Public Safety Committee, Deborah Witzberg, the city's Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety, pointed to a demographic cliff on the horizon for the department at a time when the city has tried to increase its recruitment of black police officers. Let's scroll down. Because of the demographics, the racial makeup of the population approaching retirement age, over the coming years, the representation of black or African-American officers in the department is likely to go down substantially, while the representation of Latinx officers is likely to increase proportionally over the coming years. Isn't that what it's all about, Chewy? Isn't that what it's all about? Good job, buddy. You did it. I think those are important considerations as we think about hiring and recruiting and the department, appropriate decisions about assignment, and so on. When Ron Emanuel was mayor, he made attracting more black officers a priority as he embarked on a police hiring surge. But African American remains unrepresented among the ranks in a city that's almost 1/3 black. Members of the city council have long pushed for more black officers, and on Monday they took the opportunity to make their case. Committee Chairman Alderman Chris Taliaferro, 29th Ward, a former police officer, expressed concern with Inspector General's office data that shows several police districts that have high black populations but relatively few black cops.
Seems like a common trend that I see in Chicago.
Yeah. And that was like the one thing that Obama was like, oh, maybe we should do that. And people are like, you're crazy. But
what? Having people who live in their communities also maybe be a part of the policing and protecting of those communities.
And I'm not here to, again, it's not to simp on Obama, but it's just like you could have had a decent country 10 years ago, but you were just stupid about it.
Well, I mean, we can't. We can't necessarily say that it was. That's not like that wasn't an us thing. Right?
That was every. I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things at play, but like, yeah, it more like American aristocracy, like.
Yeah.
Morons, you had it so good, and Northwest Side. Nick Spasato, 30th Ward, asked about how the city can possibly achieve greater diversity when the majority of the people who sit for police departments test are white men. So.
Well, I sure I have an idea.
Yeah.
You okay?
No.
Pardon.
Okay.
A good place to start might be like stop vilifying the communities where you want more of like that diversity to come from.
That'd be nice.
That's like maybe let's just start there. Let's just see how that works. CPD. That's my message to you is quit being racist and maybe more diversity will come to you.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He could have done that a while ago.
The Inspector General's office is currently looking at the whole police department recruiting process so we can have a more informed conversation about where people are falling off to see where potential recruits are dropping out.
It's
Yeah.
All right.
I don't really know. I don't really have all of...
Again, reform. I mean, and I'm just thinking, like, if Donald Trump gets a second term, like, who's going to sign up to want to be a cop? But if it's Kamala the cop and Joey Biden, police get a nice little PR makeover and a whole lot of money and little slaps on the wrist. But you guys are still going to be idiots and push for Donald Trump in public, aren't you?
Right.
Aren't you, FOP? Aren't you? You dumb sacks of crap. I'm sorry. Cops are idiots. Because you push Trump, and now you're vilified. And you're like, oh my God, why don't people like because you're idiot? Because it's with that. Never mind. Let's go to the Wall Street Journal thing real quick.
It's
not Rockfin yet.
It's not. It's the next thing that I have is from Status Quo.
Oh right. So there was a good protest on Saturday. I got there a little. I didn't take video of this part. Status Quo was there. Shout out to Status Quo for covering great stories in Chicago. They had a much, I think we can start here. I just kind of want to show a little bit of like the speakers that were out. This is Whitney Young, my old high school. It's adjacent to the old police academy. Organizers got a huge rally to march and take the streets. It was pretty peaceful. They marched up to kind of like a Union sector, like some other police stations. And let's hear what this guy has to say real quick.
showcasing that we are having revolutionary joy. We are having mutual aid. We are having community building, consensus building. We are having understanding and informational meetings with folks, right? We are giving people knowledge and resources, right? You're not covering that. So that's what I first want to say. I want to say to the people who are the executives at the media, understand we're making our own shit now. Because at this point in time, it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter that I got my ass beat by CPD and didn't do nothing. Y'all still have something to say about what I did or what the black women did who got their ass beat too, right? So that's first. Secondly, I would like to say this school was named after Whitney M. Young, right? A civil rights activist, freedom fighter, right? Now, Urban League, you know what I'm saying? National Association of Social Workers, right? Fighting for employment discrimination, right? 1941, you know what I'm saying? 1961 was appointed, you know what I'm saying? So understand, we are here in lineage. We are here with our ancestors. We are here with the people who really made this happen. And you're going to tell us that slave catchers are supposed to be around our school and around our perimeter and policing my body and policing my autonomy? You're going to tell me that this is a college preparatory school where in college you are learning how to have human agency and you are learning how to have autonomy, and I can't go outside to go to lunch without being followed by the police? I can't go in school without being checked for my ID several times after I already showed my ID? It's not just this school. It's every school. But this school is a great idea of the paradigm that exists right now, right? Which is this moderate bullshit that Lori Lightfoot has come out with, this machine tactic. So let me tell you what that means. What that means is Dr. Kenner at the school, the principal, is using the idea that we are a black school, we are named after a black, we are a black principal, I'm this and that, and at the same time are only appealing to the interests of the affluent white kids in this school. Understand that. Understand? While I was at this school, there were group chats where nigger and all types of racial epithets were thrown at me and my friends, and nothing happened. No police, right? But understand, when I went in school a little high, then police are arresting me, right? So understand these are not the same things. You don't know what public safety is, you don't know what violence is. You need to really understand that it is embedded in the language. Racism is the question of the human. Understand, we are not seen as human in this school. Regardless of the fact that we have the highest ACT, SAT scores, it doesn't mean shit. Regardless of the fact that we have the most resources, it doesn't mean shit. Regardless of the fact that we're the best at art, music, it doesn't mean shit. Because when we come here, Jones, Lane Tech, Solorio, Curie, any school in Chicago where black and brown students who are the original proprietors of this land attend, you are not allowed to police those students. Absolutely not. We are not allowing CPD to have stake in what the fuck goes on in our black and brown communities because they don't give a fuck. So why would you come and react?
Yeah.
Although it's on status quo and he's not being censored.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too much longer, but I mean, like, all good points, right?
And please check out the video from Status Quo. Jordan is doing really good work on the road. Ultimately, I mean, these stories need to come out. And I hearing from the organizers themselves, these young kids, they're living it and they're aware of it. I mean, a great point right there. The school is living in that contradictory paradigm. That it's just, and like I said before, like we are human experiments in this city to the rich that own and control it. And if you grew up here long enough, you're hyper aware of it.
I think also if you're an observant person, if you're open-minded and observant, like I believe I am, to the most extent, like you can see plenty of examples of it if you look. If you go and kind of seek it out, right? Because it's really easy to, in big city, right? It's really easy to get lost in like one little world, right? We were talking about how there's people that from where you grew up in who don't leave like a 5-block radius, right?
Not much. Yeah,
they don't go anywhere else, right? And it's like it's easy to have that sort of small town mentality in your little neighborhood and never know what's happening on the other side of the city, right?
From not giving any mind
and not caring about it because it's just doesn't pop up in your head,
right? It
doesn't even have to be like a malicious thing.
Right. And that's why if Lane Tech students and Curie students and Whitney Young students and students across the city are organizing together, that's what, to me needs to be protected because he's super aware of everything that's happening right now. And I don't have the answers of where we're going to be 10 years from now. And I'm hoping that when these kids are in their prime, they'll be together and working on those things together, because we were all over the place, and the rich just handed it to us, our asses. But
I think we're gonna maybe move to our last thing.
Our
Before
last
we do
thing.
though,
Yeah.
Kalita, good night. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you, Kalita.
Get some good sleep. Thank you all for being here. Right? It's good to. I don't know, especially after yesterday, like after the show yesterday, it was so. I was such a high and low of like bummed out and about life in the world. And today though we're talking about police a whole lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there is a real radical chance of like good really coming through all of this, right? I mean,
I do too.
I've
been feeling that. Like, we saw the DNC. I was expecting some tomfoolery from them. We got a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
It's
the RNC is happening exactly the way that you thought it would happen.
Cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
It's Monty Burns basically telling you why he's not racist. Let me tell you about all of my slave-owning brothers.
Dude, let me tell you about all my black friends.
No.
Right?
Not even friends.
Yeah.
But yeah. Keynote speakers. But it's amidst all of that, the police get to choose, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what you idiots choose. You basically should choose Biden. You know what's better for you guys.
Right.
It's better. It's the better choice. Be back the efforts, the organizing efforts of Gen Z.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we're back.
Are we?
It would appear. I don't know how long this is going to last, though. I'm going to be really straight with you.
Okay.
So I think we should just get to our last thing.
Yeah,
and
last
get on
little
outta
tweet.
here.
But yeah, all of this to say that, your police get to choose between Democrats and Republicans. Either way, Gen Z is organizing together holistically, and our role as millennials is to protect those organizing efforts on their part.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let them take too many arrests early on, I would hope. Millennials, like, don't get your Gen Zers arrested on the regular, but
try.
yeah,
See.
but like to really make this the intergenerational organizing effort that it needs to be. Last tweet, and then let's cut out of here.
So the last thing is tweet from Grace Del Vecchio.
Nailed it. Not really. Sorry.
Sorry.
Grace Del
I'm
Vecchio is one of the stringers for Block Club Chicago, along with Vishan, who's been also just like live tweeting a lot of these protests.
Okay.
Today there's a protest in Chicago at 5 p.m. Activists in Chicago will be joining APW National for Save Our Post Office Day. You can search the protest by taking place the link below. If you check out this link, you put in your zip code, and it will tell you about a protest to save your local post office. Today there will be a massive demonstration. Well, not massive, but a bigger one downtown for Chicago at large. Shout out to the good work that On the String independent journalists are doing across Chicago to get these stories out there, especially people that are working very closely with the organizers that are putting on these protests, these marches, and these events. There you go. Yeah, and now the post office is rallying to save itself. Should have been,
Which is good. So
Yeah.
this is the, I think all of their, the demands are all the same, right? Like anywhere you go, the demands are all the same. They have one unified goal in providing support for the post office. This is just the one, if you're in Chicago, right, that's taking place directly downtown.
Yeah.
And yeah, just good to shed a little bit of light on something that's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Something that's happening in Chicago, but also all over the world, right?
I mean, we have to keep trying. I mean, look, we have to make whatever happens in November a win for the masses to some degree.
Yeah,
and
we need some form of victory for people.
People, right? And I mean, ultimately, whoever wins, like, it'll be pretty upsetting. If Trump were to win, I mean, it is. I'm afraid of what he would do with his executive orders. I'm afraid of the Republican Party being emboldened.
Mm-hmm.
But I would know that, like, people are not going to let off from these ground fights, and I think it would help our numbers.
I would be less. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was getting to, like, early on in the show, is like I I'm split, right, between the two, because like if Trump wins, it'll be better for the people, I think, because people will get more and more outraged, right? Like we don't know what happens every day in the Trump administration. It's something new,
right,
that Trump is doing, right?
Something
but it's
shocking, though.
But even
That's
like
the scary part of it.
But even like the new things, right now, it all kind of, for the people at least, is leading towards one general consensus, which is that the government, regardless, sucks. It needs to be changed. We need to make reforms, and the only way to do that is direct action, right?
Right.
That's the general thing that's the point that I think the Trump administration is getting the people to. If Biden wins, that could be better for social reforms in some ways, but also that's only going to serve to pacify an angry people who have spent 4 years now getting really riled up about government, right?
I mean, it might or it might not. It might not placate enough of the hard left, and it might embolden more of the right-wing people that are kind of like quiet right now during Donald Trump. To be like, I don't like the government doing all this stuff, and that might also help numbers. Like, I don't know. Either way, like, getting these stories out of Chicago and these monumental shifts is how we hopefully hold to account the many changes that are happening in real time. And the goal is to make the American empire not the destructive force on the planet that it is to all life, everywhere that it touches, that it is right now. How do we do that from our little stoop in Chicago? I mean, it's more of this, hopefully. We'll do it.
Just
We'll
more,
see.
just bringing what we can to the fight, right? Whether that's, I mean, just sharing what's happening in our little neck of the woods and what that means for us in the larger scheme of things in the world, or sharing voices of activists and protesters who need their voices to be heard more than I think we need our voices to be heard, right? Yeah. That's the work that I want to get more into.
Right, which thanks for that, because this will be the last week of Fear and Loathing in the Windy City on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so this is our last Tuesday show. We'll have one more episode on Thursday. Hopefully less cop talk. I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit cop talk.
We'll probably talk about cops.
Might be a lot of teacher talk. Maybe we'll switch it. But we'll be moving to Sundays, not this coming Sundays. The first Sunday of September will be our first episode of Fear and Loathing's new schedule, where we do hope that we bring on more interviews from people that are doing this work across the city. Less of our meandering takes and more about uplifting the stories of the people that are doing the work across the city.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much that are out there that are doing this, that are helping the youth that are being put on the front lines, and everyone that's helping guide this process towards hopefully substantial change. Budget season at City Council is between September and October, so keeping up the pace until then, until we can flood City Hall and really make our narrative the more pronounced narrative that can't be shifted away by Chicago local media, hopefully is enough to lead to substantial and positive changes in the city.
I dig it. Yeah. I think that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
That's
that
the
being
show.
Said, I'm Jose.
And I'm Gunner.
This is Gunner. This has been Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out our review of Godfather 3 later today,
which is happening in 44 minutes.
Oh my God, let's get some tacos before then.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Dope.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Be best.
When the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.